on your cycle, but like women are not tracking their
Cycles,
anymore.
right? Mm-hmm.
So it's like, what happened to that old-fashioned tracking your cycle? You can use other forms of contraception. You know, you can use condoms, or you can, you know, if you really want to get detailed, take your temperature to make sure you're not ovulating.
Right.
There's IUDs that are non-hormonal, which have little less side effects. At least it's not releasing the hormones. But there's ways to avoid pregnancy or reproduction and not have to be on an oral contraceptive.
Right. You got it?
I shouldn't have taken it off at all.
Okay. What's up? My name is Jyim Life, certified personal trainer and a holistic health coach.
My name is Shireen. I'm a registered dietitian, integrative health practitioner, holistic health coach, and much more.
And we're going to be here breaking down wellness for you. Let's vibe out, the Jyim Life podcast. All right, so you read an interesting article.
Yes.
As we're always going over different information, and it's funny because I know this as you're scrolling through, or if it's like somebody gives you a recommendation, then certain ones just pique your interest. And when you told me about this one, I was like, oh, we gotta dive into this.
This
So,
is a big one.
so tell me the article and kind of your quick summary on what it's about.
Okay, so there's multiple articles, but this particular article, the hypothesis is this. The contraceptive pill, which contraception, you know, hormonal contraception in general, alter mate choice in humans.
Okay. Do
What do you
contraceptives
What do you
alter
think?
mate choice?
Yes. The way they pose the question, but what do you think?
So I would think anything that has some impact hormonally, therefore emotionally, is gonna have an impact on your decision making.
Right. So
Okay.
initially, like any hormonal contraception affects your emotions, right?
Right.
So that changes the way you make choices. But there's another factor to it too. What do you think a contraceptive pill or a hormonal contraceptive is actually doing to a woman's body?
Okay, so
Do you like the way I turn this on?
I love this. I love this. Hey, listen, I
love.
love the guess. Look, I'm gonna see if I can figure some of this out. So I would say it's designed to kind of interrupt the natural course and everything associated with getting pregnant, right?
Right,
So
reproduction.
reproduction. So with reproduction, there is not only the act of actually becoming pregnant. There's a bunch of physiological changes that happen prior, during, and post, right? And I think that contraceptives are designed to interrupt that natural cycle.
Exactly.
Okay.
So starting from the basics, like we are animals, right? So our animal instinct, our purpose as humans is to reproduce. Whether
Right.
or not we choose to do that in this, you know, world, modern day world, that's a whole separate topic. But our
Right.
natural rhythm is based on reproduction. A woman's menstruation is the source of that. So when you are disrupting menstruation, ovulation, that entire 4-phase cycle that a woman goes through, usually monthly, you're actually disrupting the signals back and forth between humans that are trying to attract the right mate for them.
Right, so we're going back as far as even the process of choosing that mate.
Just choosing the mate. So if you're choosing a mate and all your signals are crossed and blocked and like and muzzled and like they're not out in the open and like giving off signals to receive the right signals, then there's no communication. And choosing the right mate is like a silent communication between two people, right? Most of it is not logical.
Right.
So where do you think that comes from? That comes from your signaling.
Right.
So when your signals are shut down, then you're basing a relationship on
Logic.
basically nothing, on logic.
But you just said something I think is so interesting is that there's so much nonverbal communication, whether it's body language or just energetically, right, that happens. How would you describe that? So it's like there's a process of choosing a mate that has nothing to do with on paper. Needs to be this. Check these boxes. How do we describe that communication?
So you have things on paper that this is like a new thing, right?
Okay.
This is a modern day thing. We choose people based on their Instagram page, like how many like mutuals you have.
Right,
You know,
right.
that's a new generation. Like, you know, or what someone looks like, or what someone does, or how much money somebody makes, or you know what kind of family they come from. So you're basing it on the things that logically you think make sense, the resume basically. And then there's a complete opposite side of the spectrum, which is the illogical. It's like what like how you want to like pounce on the person, and like what your friends think the girl looks like when she's standing next to you, and like you know like the pheromone part of it. Part of the pheromones, part of that could be chemistry, but part of that could also be visual and just even trauma bonding, right?
Right.
So that's also not healthy, but it's the illogical part of the unhealthy side of things. So you want to find a nice healthy medium between those two.
Right.
There's going to be basically an agreement between your logical and your illogical, which is your heart,
Right.
not your trauma.
Right.
There's a difference between making decisions based on your heart or your trauma.
Right.
And so I think the most important thing, and I wish people did this, and I work with people all the time, it's so interesting, but somehow I always end up working with people and their relationships, either with their family members that they live with or their significant other, because that is the core of your health.
Right.
If you have relationships that are not balanced with people, then that's a reflection of how you feel about yourself, right? You haven't healed things within yourself to build healthy relationships with people, whether it's a significant other or family member.
Right.
So you have to find the right balance within yourself of sorting out through healing like the trauma that's in there, so you don't bond to people based on trauma and toxicity, and then finding also like that some of the logical things that are going to help make your life flow easily. And so that comes with time and work, which most people don't do.
Right. And I guess discerning which one is which between trauma, heart, feelings, things like that. But so now if contraception interrupts some of that natural process in terms of choosing a mate, we don't, I guess we don't want to say it has you make a bad choice, but it doesn't make a choice that's in alignment with how you probably would have chosen without the contraception. What would be some ways that you would suggest, being in this profession, seeing this so often, that women who are not ready to go through the idea of getting pregnant and starting a family, and they're choosing a mate where it's, I'm not sure if you're going to be my husband or I'm going to have a family with you, but in that process, I want to make sure that we're not reproducing, right?
Well, there's so many different forms of non-hormonal contraception. I actually got a DM. I posted something about this week, and someone DM'd me, and she's like, well, then what do? I don't want to get pregnant anymore. And like, first of all, what happened to, you know, I know there's really a small possibility of getting pregnant when you're not ovulating or when you're not on your cycle, but like women are not tracking their cycles anymore.
Right.
So it's like, what happened to that old-fashioned tracking your cycle? You can use other forms of contraception. You know, you can use condoms, or you can, you know, if you really want to get detailed, take your temperature to make sure you're not ovulating.
Right.
There's IUDs that are non-hormonal, which have a little less side effects. At least it's not releasing the hormones. But there's ways to avoid pregnancy or reproduction and not have to be on an oral contraceptive.
Right.
Oral contraception is being so overly prescribed. I think it's like 1 in 3 like reproductive women are on some sort of form of like hormonal contraceptive. Something like that, 1 in 3, 1 in 4. It's crazy. Like you go to the doctor and you're like, oh, my daughter is breaking out. Oh, we'll just put her on the pill. Oh, my daughter's periods are heavy. Oh, we'll just put her on the pill.
Right.
Oh, like my daughter gets headaches before her menstruation. Oh, put her on the pill. I think I'm going through menopause. Oh, just get on. You know, it's like become this like almost like this pandemic of like just
Here.
silence the woman's body and
Yeah.
everything will be okay.
Wow. Wow.
And yes, initially, I mean, I'll tell you my own personal story. I had PCOS. PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Okay.
And I didn't know, I mean, I started showing symptoms kind of at a young age, and it wasn't a thing. Now it's like everyone has PCOS. You go on TikTok, you go on Instagram, it's like everywhere. But back then, I went to so many specialists and they couldn't figure it out. Now, fast forward, I realized I had gut issues from birth, and I had like, you know, allergies and all of this inflammation, which probably caused this. So I never had regular periods. I had like, you know, a lot of other symptoms. I started losing my hair. I had awkward like belly weight, which I never had. And like all these things started happening. And at 15, 16, I went to a doctor and she said, you need to take oral contraception and a diuretic.
Okay.
Now, that is the protocol for PCOS. And so I was like, okay, great. I took it, became very crazy with the birth control. But, you know, I was like, this is what I have to do to, you know, have regular periods and all of this. I was on and off birth control for many, many years up until COVID. And I was too scared to get off of it because I didn't think I would ever regain that cycle.
Right.
My body was on autopilot for so many years. I knew what it was doing to me. I was definitely attracted to the wrong type of people. I'll tell you that. And even when I was with someone who could have been the right mate, I wasn't behaving in the way that I needed to have a healthy, balanced relationship because my signals were all off.
Right.
So when I got off of birth control, I got a lot of rebounding issues. It took some time. I healed my body. I changed a lot of things in my life. I got rid of a lot of toxic relationships and energies in my life. But it was like crazy that this birth control was like kind of putting me on autopilot where I didn't even realize what was happening.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have a cycle.
Yeah.
So I didn't know like I was feeling certain emotions because of X, Y, and Z. Like everything was kind of masked. And so for me, like I see the difference. I know that I was kind of shut down in a lot of ways all those years, but I trusted my healthcare providers, and to be honest with you, it was a lot of work to like try to figure it out the other way.
Yeah.
Because I did it on my own. I didn't go to like an integrative or functional practitioner who said, do this, this, and this, and you'll be okay. You know, I figured it out on my own. I'm glad I did, but I was really not in touch with what was happening within my core. I wasn't able to really tune into myself.
Right. It's funny because now, prior to us recording, we had a conversation about dehydration, taking Advil, right? And I think it's situations like this within the healthcare profession that we have a condition or an issue, and instead of figuring out the causation of that, right, we go more to treating that. So the analogy I was giving before was like, it would be like being dehydrated over a set of days, then getting a headache, and then taking Advil to stop the headache, and you've never even addressed the dehydration.
Exactly.
Which could end up becoming much more worse and manifesting itself into other things that are a lot more difficult to deal with, right?
Exactly.
That's one thing that made me think of. Then the second thing that you said that really stuck out is maybe having the conversation with your partner about condoms if you're in a heterosexual relationship. Having that conversation about condoms with your partner, but I think a lot of people avoid it due to the awkwardness, right? And I think one thing, both, and I don't want to put the responsibility on women, right? But if the man isn't assuming that responsibility, I think taking that initiative to say, okay, is this what we're doing for birth control in order to save your body from having to go under all these different contraceptive things that are impacting you chemically?
Exactly.
Right?
And also, I mean, not to get down even deeper with it, but it's like that's assuming that you're in a committed relationship, right?
Oh, right, right.
So, like, think about how casual sex has become, which is another, another probably result of people signaling being off. People are just looking to have these like moment to moment, surface connections with people and never see them again. So when you're
Right.
having casual sex with people, it's even more uncomfortable sometimes to have these conversations because you're not going to have like a little meeting before you're having this spur of the moment hookup and saying like, hey, so have like, do you want to have kids in case, just as, like in case you slip and like, or the condom breaks even. Like, this is, it goes even deeper is that having this intimacy or what people call like hooking up or sex, it's actually meant to be a form of intimacy, which all of these decisions should come with it. So all the casualness around it, which, whether you want to do it or not, that's also energetic, is all this casual like sex that people are having. It also is causing women to be like, okay, I'm gonna just go on the pill because I don't want to deal with, anything, and I can't have this conversation with this random person I meet, because that is a conversation to have.
Right. And then it is awkward if it's just,
especially if you want a little quick 1, 2, 3. You don't want to have like a whole conversation about it. Some people may, but a lot of people don't.
Right.
And so that's a whole other thing. People want to have like a hookup and they don't want to have true intimacy in a relationship. It's another reason why a lot of people are like, I'm going to just take the pill. It's a lot easier. But what happens is, again, you're engaging in behaviors that are not truly connected to your core self.
So it almost sounds like maybe segmenting those lifestyles. So if you know you're in a phase where it's going to be casual and hook up and you're not ready to choose that bait or have that, maybe having an understanding like, okay, I'm not in alignment to make that best choice. So when I want to be in alignment to that, maybe then I'll come off the contraceptives for a year, 2 years to kind of cleanse it out so you can maybe understand that your discernment into who best aligns with you could be a little bit more applicable.
Yes,
right?
And I would like to say that's actually a really good point. And I tell all like the girls in their 20s that come ask me about birth control, get off your birth control for a year or two before you choose your mate.
Right.
If you want to be on it, there's a lot of other side effects or whatever I don't want to get into. But if you want to be on it, get off of it before you choose your mate.
Right.
I'm telling you, I have been in the same relationship on and off birth control, and my relationship was day and night, completely different.
Just from
with
that.
the same human.
Right.
So it really, really makes a difference. I actually had a client who was in like a toxic relationship, got out of the toxic relationship the second she got off her birth control and met like her life partner right after. And I'm not saying you're going to meet your life partner right after, but I would have been a little concerned if she met him halfway on her birth control, then got off of it, and then kind of felt weird about him, because your feelings do shift and change.
Right.
They really do.
And I think it's important to highlight the scientific correlation between hormonal impact, decision making, feelings, emotions.
Right.
So what you said earlier, which is very important, is that when we're choosing a mate, it's not all logic. It's just, how does that person make me feel? And if we're basing it on how we feel, we want to be in that space of really identifying with our true feelings rather than a hormonally impacted set of feelings.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And your feelings, so you can base a lot of, like, chemistry is based on hormones a lot of times. So part of chemistry is based on hormones, but your true hormones. So the best time to choose a mate between a man and a woman, if that's how you're, choosing a mate, a heterosexual relationship, is during a woman's ovulation. Because the internal signal is, I'm ready to reproduce, which women get hornier during their ovulation because they're ready to reproduce. And a man can like, his animal instinct is like almost like sniff that signal.
Right.
And then he looks at her and she's like that, she's fertile and ready to go. So that's a silent exchange between those two people. That's a good time to actually meet somebody.
Right.
On both ends, for
On
the
both
man
ends.
and the woman.
On both ends, right.
Now, again, if you don't want to have a baby with that person and you're gonna like go home with them, you do want to use some form of contraception.
Right.
But that's the signaling that is exchanged that you want to be tapped into. It's not logic and it's not emotional. It's chemical.
Right, right.
So that's a big part of it too. And it's that chemistry that so many people who are so logical and they're like, he's sweet, he's generous, he's kind, he has a great job, he can support, a family, but I just like have no desire for this person, for instance, which I see a lot of people going into relationships like that. And it's because the chemical connection isn't there.
Right, right.
And then people tend to have some bumps in their relationships, even though everything looks wonderful on paper, because the chemical connection is missing.
Right. And I think what we always emphasize, and both of us are huge believers in, is not necessarily deciding what you're going to do based on this conversation, but just now having an understanding of the impact it's having on you so you can navigate a lot more efficiently and definitely more in alignment.
Of course, and like I know so many people who know this, I've sent them these articles and they're still like, I know it's true, but
then at least you know.
You have to be ready because when you get off these hormonal contraceptives, it's not always rainbows and butterflies at first. Sometimes it's easy for some women and for others it's not.
Right.
So you have to be prepared to do the real work to tap back into your internal signal.
Right, definitely. Well, this was definitely something that I think I learned something from when I was put on the the hot seat, and I hope I answered the questions on point. I was there.
Yes.
All right, till next time.